Well, Armen Georgian, our Europe editor, is still in the studio with me to talk about this. Armen, what do you make of this, about the European response, and tell us a bit about the latest fallout for Europe in this?
Well, I think perhaps, Karis, the most sort of worrying fallout at the moment for European countries is the surge in natural gas prices here in Europe. What I'm seeing at the moment is that they have gone up by by more than 40% this Monday, and that's a result of Qatar stopping the production of liquefied natural gas at the biggest LNG plant in the world. So that's a really worrisome development for European countries, because higher energy prices always has political consequences, and generally that kind of twist benefits sort of various populist parties, whether on the the right or the left, that can benefit from a situation like that. But above all, of course, it's worrying for European consumers. If this is confirmed, it's going to have impacts not just on, for example, filling up cars or trucks or whatever, but also transportation costs and all the things that depend on oil, which is obviously a huge amount of things in our everyday life. So I think that's a big one to watch out for. In terms of the security fallout, well, there's obviously concrete ones, because we've already had confirmation of Iranian drones that struck the French naval base in Abu Dhabi. We've heard about the drones that were intercepted in Cyprus. Of course, both Cyprus and France are members of the EU and NATO, so there's a direct military component. There's also a European operation which is to basically aimed at guarding commercial vessels in the Red Sea. That also could potentially be affected. And so, there's a lot of sort of concrete examples of fallout right now. In terms of the sort of whole political dimension, I think that's a little bit more sort of nebulous in a way, because, of course, the EU doesn't have the kind of hard power, military power that, except, of course, for, some of the NATO countries like France and Greece and Cyprus that are closer to it, that could use military power, I guess, if they already had to. But I think in terms of the EU political response, it's been a very mixed bag. On the one hand, the institutions, they didn't want to say openly that there was an attack on Iran this weekend. And it reminded me a lot of the rhetoric they used about the kidnapping of Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela. The fact that the Europeans don't like the regimes in Iran or the previous regime in Venezuela, that very much conditions the language they use. So, for example, when Russia attacked Ukraine on the 24th of February 2022, the language European leaders used then was completely different from the language they used when Iran was attacked this weekend. So some would say that's a double standard. I guess it reflects the fact that Europe, as I say, doesn't like the regimes in Tehran and in Caracas. So they're very, very careful. They say, on the one hand, we're concerned about the impact on international law of this U.S. Israeli attack. At the same time, we mustn't forget, the long-suffering people of Venezuela and Iran and so on. So it's been this kind of quite a tortuous series of verbal contortions to deal with the situation. But I guess, Karis, the bottom line is the Europeans for a long time have not had the kind of political power that they used to have 10 years ago during the Obama presidency, when they were actually very closely involved in negotiating a nuclear deal with Iran at the time. They've been steadily sidelined. And in the world we live in today, the US really has no interest in involving the EU politically. We've seen that in the negotiations that the US has had directly with Russia over Ukraine. We've seen that in the way they've approached Iran as well. The US working directly with the Israelis and the Gulf states, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and so on, and not really taking the EU into account. So it's a very different world to what it was 10 years ago when that nuclear deal with Iran was being negotiated with the Obama administration and the Europeans, where the EU had a very clear political role and influence. The EU doesn't have that today.